What up, gunfighters? You want to talk shotguns? Let's talk shotguns. There are a lot of, I don't even want to say myths, I just want to say misunderstandings. Stuff that's not really intelligence. Passed off as, well, everybody knows about the shotgun. There's some saying, I forget who even says it, but it's not what you don't know that gets you. It's what you don't know that just ain't so. So let's dive in to some deep down shotgun philosophy, ballistics, use. Because I did this for the patrons not too long ago, but I thought I would put out an episode also for the general audience. Obviously, the patrons get more content than you guys do. I think that's only fair. First and foremost, this content comes to you by the grace of God. Without Him, I could do nothing. And the patrons do a lot to support the podcast. I gave them a special episode. Also, on that, go to the Patreon page, even if you don't want to become a patron. I recently put out a poll. Most things on Patreon are just for patrons. There's a link below you can click. You don't have to scroll back really far. And you'll see a poll that I did. What do you guys want? Right? I gave time for the patrons to vote on what they wanted, which obviously holds weight. But what do you guys, the audience, want, right? I'm here to serve you guys. One of the big things you guys asked for was philosophy. More philosophy podcasts. Now, I'm a bit skeptical on that, because generally when I put out an episode on the top 5 polymer handguns, or the best things to throw your money at a problem, those tend to do pretty well, and I get down to a deep philosophical discussion, and it tends to not do as well sometimes. But if you guys want more philosophy, we'll dig into that. We're going to talk about shotgun philosophy and use today. We're also going to talk about a bit about ballistics, which got some votes. Anyway, if you want to vote, again, go to the Patreon page. Scroll down through and there'll be a poll on there. What do you want content on? I'm here to serve God first and foremost, and I'm here to serve you guys, right? I'm a servant. Consider me an employee. I work for you guys. So what do you want? Go to the poll on Patreon. Anyway, with that, welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, philosophy, ballistics, hunting, urban warfare, all manner of things the right way, with Almighty God at the center and the real world first-hand experience He's blessed me to have. With that, I'm going to throw in the bio. If you want to skip it, skip around 2 minutes and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the episode. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and in some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other 3-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast, and elk and bear and wolf, and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder. Certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life, and he said something to the effect of, I thought you'd be bigger. Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end. Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God, all the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength. It's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. Now, there is perhaps no more misunderstood common small arm than the shotgun. And I think part of that is due to its simplicity. It can be a very simple machine, a very basic tube, fairly low pressure by firearm standard tube, no rifling, just a smooth bore tube, maybe just a bead on it that breaks apart, maybe has a hammer, maybe doesn't, right? That's a very simple shotgun up to a very complex shotgun, right? Completely disassemble an over and under shotgun. It can be pretty complex. But because they can be simple, I think people tend to oversimplify them. There is a just deep well of knowledge on different kinds of shotgun shells, far more than most other guns. Like, let's take perhaps the most versatile of rifle cartridges. And you take the variety, and it's probably unarguably the most versatile rifle cartridge. I can go down to 110 grain, 30-06, great for coyotes and things like that. I can go up to the mid-weight, the 150s, the 168s, great all around, kind of, medium to large game. I can go all the way up to 220 grain, which is what I took to Alaska in real thick brown bear country. It's a very versatile round. But that's pretty much it. You look at shotgun shells, you can go from historically, now even more so, but historically from let's pick a 12 gauge, right? We can go from the standard 2 3/4, 3-inch magnums, 3.5 inch. You can go down now all the way down to the short shells, which I believe are 1 1/4 inches, or 1 3/4 inches rather. I can go from hunting a dove to that same grizzly bear, that same brown bear, with different kinds of ammo. I can pluck animals out of the sky. It's one of the best close-up, door-kicking, urban warfare, room-clearing, small arms, period. Right? Nothing is versatile like that. Just look at the amount of versatility in buckshot, which let's start there. Let's just pick one, and let's start there. Buckshot. There's a lot of common misconception on buckshot. Some people think that it's called buckshot, but some people would say it's not really suitable for deer. It's only suitable for deer in like 25 yards and in. And I've heard 25 yards, I've heard like 35 yards. But yeah, if you just have whatever shotgun you have and go down to Walmart and buy a box of buckshot and shoot it, hopefully you test it. A lot of that myth may come from somebody that just goes and just puts buckshot in the shotgun and goes out to shoot a deer without ever patterning it, which I really don't advise. But even that, let's say they actually do test it and they're like, oh, well, this stuff spreads out pretty far at 25 yards and I'm shooting double-aught buck through a full choke. Well, okay. Number one, buckshot does not play by the same rules as birdshot. You may actually get worse patterns out of like a full choke because those pellets are much bigger and they don't really compress like smaller shot does. So you may actually get a way better pattern if you just put in a cylinder bore. No constriction, or an improved cylinder, or maybe a modified. Right? So if you think, oh, well, I've got full choke, which is the tightest I can have, and I'm shooting double-aught buck, like what the military uses, and I'm losing half my pellets at 25 yards. Well, that might be because you're using the wrong choke. One of the big misconceptions is that a tighter choke always gives you a tighter pattern, but it doesn't. A tighter choke generally gives you a tighter pattern, but you have to test that. Going back to that rifle, that would be like getting a rifle and getting a box of ammo at Walmart and shooting it, and your gun shoots 2 inches. And you're like, well, this is a crap 2 MOA gun. Which 2 MOA is not even that bad, but you're thinking, well, this rifle's not that good. It shoots 2 MOA. But you shot a box of ammo through it. What if it doesn't like that grain weight bullet? What if it doesn't like that brand? Going back to the buckshot, have you tried flight control wads, which make a huge difference in the pattern of buckshot? Have you tried, was it just a cheap lead round balls? Or have you tried, copper plated? Have you tried copper plated buffered buckshot? Have you tried it through an improved cylinder choke? Have you tried stepping down to number 1 buck? Or my personal favorite from most things, number 4 buck. Seeing how that does. Or you just take it and shoot a box of ammo that was randomly on the shelf and said, oh, well, it's 25 yards and in. I have taken, I don't know how many animals with buckshot, and I've taken some at pretty long ranges. I didn't just do it randomly and just hope for the best, though. Like, I trained with the shotgun. I had, and I sold it because I didn't realize how great a shotgun it was. I've just figured most shotguns were that good. But I had a Benelli M1 Super 90. No constriction. No constriction in the bore. Just a smooth bore police shotgun. That thing would put every single pellet well within a torso target at 50 yards. With buckshot. With double-aught buck. Just no constriction. I took my largest bear to date with that shotgun. I don't want to just throw out numbers because I didn't measure it. I just knew it was within killing range. I killed it. But you would be surprised at how well buckshot can do if you actually do some work. If you just don't buy the cheapest Rio clear plastic lead ball buckshot and try and shoot it through a modified or a full choke. Now, you may decide that's the buckshot you want because you may want it to spread out more. But you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of nuance in there. Just real quick on the buckshot. Your most common is double-aught buck. Double-aught buck is kind of the military and police standard. Double-aught buck is good for barrier penetration. It's good for the military. If you're doing like jungle warfare, you want to punch through stuff. It's gonna go through more stuff. It's a bigger, heavier pellet. It's gonna retain that energy longer, especially through intermediate barriers. So if a shotgun is your truck gun, you may want to consider loading it with double-aught buck because there's a good chance you're going to shoot through your vehicle and or into somebody else's vehicle if it's a truck gun. But for most other things, I like number 4. Now, forgive the redundancy for those who know it or have heard it before, but double-aught buck is about 33 caliber, and number 4 buck is about 24 caliber. For a standard shell, standard loading, you get 9 pellets of double-aught buck. Some people argue that the 8 pellet is better. Again, test it out of your shotgun, but let's say standard is 9 pellets of double-aught buck, and a standard length for a 12 gauge is 2 3/4. A standard, I'm looking at a box right now in front of me, a standard just vanilla load number 4 buck is 27 pellets. If we move up to a magnum in both, we look at 12 pellets of double-aught buck. If we go up to a magnum in number 4, we look at 41 pellets. And classically, there's a Remington load, and this, you got to test it out of your gun, right? I'm not just telling you to get this load and you're good. There's a classic Remington load I've seen for who knows how many years. I'm sure it was around when I was a kid. But it's just a green and yellow box, Remington 3-inch, 41 pellet, number 4 buck. Is a beast of a load. Number 4 is my personal favorite for most things, for like home defense, for hunting. And a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, with the efficiency. If you think about stacking circular balls, lead balls into a cylinder, right? If you get bigger spheres in there, you get a lot more empty space just because they don't stack efficiently. It's not like building something with Legos where they all fit together nicely, right? There's a bunch of gaps in there. Well, you step a little bit down to the number 4 buck, you get a lot more pellets in there. Again, 41 versus 12. It's a lot more efficient. And anyway, I prefer number 4 buck. It's got plenty of killing power, but you do give up some of that barrier penetration if that's important to you. And if you can't make up your mind and or your shotgun just likes it better, there is number 1 buck. It's not as popular, but it's a good load. Number 1 buck. It's in the middle of those two, as you might imagine. But that's not a bad load either. There's a lot just in buckshot, right? I guess I'll throw out a couple of standard go-tos. I mentioned that Remington 41 pellet 3-inch Magnum number 4 buck. That's a great load. If you're talking about a tactical shotgun, military police type work, and it's got a smooth bore or a fairly open choke, and you got to test it, because those shotgun wads are meant to stay with the pellet. So if you have too much choke, it's going to rip the wad, or it can hinder the pattern, right? I said that in general, in the mass generality, a tighter choke will give you a tighter pattern, but not always. So anyway, if you're shooting a more open choke, more tactical military police type shotgun, you really might want to look at the Federal Flight Control or the Hornady, I think it's Versatite wad. They both use, I think, the same wad. They both bought like the rights to use that wad. It's kind of revolutionary technology. You can get some pretty impressive patterns if your shotgun likes it. So you might want to look there. Also on that Versatite, Hornady does make that Versatite wad in number 4 buck. Yeah, your shotgun may or may not like. I just randomly picked buckshot, but I guess since we talked about buckshot, let's talk about the other heavy hitter in the shotgun world. Let's talk about slugs. You get 2 main flavors of slugs. The most common here in America is the Foster style slug. Kind of think of this, if you've never cut one open and looked at it, think of it as, what are those candies that you get at like a movie theater? I don't eat candy, but I'm sure I did when I was younger. Dots. It's like if you took a dot, that candy, that kind of like big, just bulbous drop, and you hollowed out the back of it. That's kind of the rough shape of a Foster slug. It's got a big skirt on it. If you think about that, like a really fast-moving version of, what's that game, Badminton, where the heavy part is towards the front and the skirt actually keeps it going in the right direction. They're usually generally rifled. You'll see a rifled Foster slug. And again, that's the most common here in America. Those are meant to be shot through a smooth bore barrel. There's a debate as to how well that rifling actually works, but it does work to help that slug pass through different chokes without blowing your gun up. It gives it a little bit of egress for that lead. If you look at it, it's like raised ridges on the skirt of that slug, so that when it compresses, it gives it an egress place for that lead to go. It's generally recommended, from what I see on most manufacturers and stuff like that, generally recommended that you shoot slugs through improved cylinder to give you kind of the best balance. Open choke, obviously no constriction, that'll work fine, won't hurt anything. And again, you got to test it. You may get better accuracy with an open choke. You may get better accuracy through an improved cylinder. You may get better accuracy through a modified. Generally not recommended that you shoot a slug a lot through a full choke. You can probably do it and get away with it, but you're talking about really, really compressing a fast-moving lead slug through a cone. And there can be quite a bit of constriction on a full choke, so, think about that. If you had to do it in an emergency, like you're just taking out your shotgun to do some, a long hunt for ducks and geese, and you take a couple of slugs just in case you get a bear come in, you got to shoot one slug through it, you're going to be okay. I wouldn't recommend you go out and shoot slugs to a full choke. And in general, I think that's a pretty good consensus from most manufacturers, that you don't want to consistently shoot lead and shoot slugs through a full choke. And again, improved cylinder is usually a go-to for that. Wow, shotguns are complex. I guess I should. For those that are listening and don't know what a choke is, real quick, and there's a lot that goes into this, but real quick. If you just think of a shotgun barrel as a smooth metal tube, generally at the end of it, you can have some kind of constriction to make the bore smaller, to generally give you a tighter pattern downrange. Now, don't fall into the trap of thinking that you always want a tighter pattern. You don't. One of the great things of a shotgun is that the shot spreads out. So if I'm trying to shoot a quail out of the air flying at 40 miles an hour, my dog jumps up a few feet in front of me, I don't want a real tight pattern. So don't always make the mistake of thinking you always want a tight pattern. But you can get tighter patterns going to different chokes, more constriction. Real basic. That funnel at the end, that constriction, the choke. Most modern shotguns will have interchangeable chokes. A Rem choke, a Wind choke, Benelli, Beretta chokes. You know, I'm not going to go with them all, but you get the idea. You screw out one choke and screw in another on most modern shotguns. Unless it's a tactical shotgun, a lot of those, not that they shouldn't have it, but I think a lot of people don't care, so a lot of them just don't have it. But you're talking open choke or cylinder bore, same thing, no constriction. Open choke, cylinder. The next common one is improved cylinder, and then modified is like, think of that as like your medium, modified, medium, halfway, and then your full, which is a lot of constriction. And there are way more chokes than that. There's like extra full, extra super mega uber turkey full. But those are the basic ones. No constriction, improved cylinder, modified, full. So anyway, just a real, and there's a lot, man. This is gonna be a long episode. I'm gonna try and keep it brief because I've done whole ones on explaining basics of shotguns, but I'd feel remiss if I didn't, because some people just might be lost. Back to the slugs, the Foster slug, the rifled Foster slug. It's the most common one here in America. It's a beast. There is another common in Europe. It's the Bernecki slug. I think it's probably a superior design, to be honest. It works a little bit different, talking about that lead skirt that the Foster uses to keep it, stable and flying in the right direction with the right end forward. The Bernecki slug generally has some kind of lighter wadding material attached to the back, much like going back to that badminton analogy. It's not a big skirt like that, but it's some kind of lighter wadding. Kind of like the fletching on an arrow. Not really, but it's the same principle. So it will have some kind of wadding in the back, sometimes literally screwed into the slug itself. Those slugs are generally not really hollowed out. So I'm not talking about the front end hollow point. I'm talking about the rear end being hollowed out. So they're generally known for really, really good penetration. So if you want like really good penetration, you might look at those if you're talking about defeating a car door or defeating barriers. Shotgun actually can do surprisingly well, because generally big, heavy objects at moderate velocities penetrate pretty well. A 45 ACP, for example, at least for their general foot-pound numbers. But anyway, Bernecki slugs tend to penetrate really well. You might want to look at those if that intrigues you for hunting, for defeating barriers, for vehicles, for big bear. They're not as common here in the U.S., but those are Berneckis. And those are both meant to be shot through a smoothbore shotgun. Rifled shotgun barrels are designed to shoot sabot slugs. In general, you're not going to blow your gun up if you do it vice versa, but I'm just telling you what they're designed for. That's what sabots are for, and that's outside the scope of this. That's a specialty purpose shotgun. If you live in a restricted state where they say you're not smart enough to shoot in a safe direction with a rifle, you must use a shotgun or a straight wall or something. But they're generally special purpose shotguns. You're basically taking your shotgun and turning it into a rifle because you put rifling in it. And those are meant for sabot slugs outside of today's discussion. Let's move on to some other, I think, misunderstandings for the modern shotguns. Birdshot. You think, how could birdshot be complicated? It's cheap, it's simple. Right, going back to that rifle analogy, you may just buy a box of ammo and say it's good, or you may try a bunch of different ammo, even of the same grain weight, right? If we talk about birdshot to birdshot, you might decide, I want to hunt deer with my 308 and 150 grain. You might buy 2 or 3 boxes, assuming you don't hand load and load your own batches. But you might buy a couple of boxes of 150 grain, even if you're stuck on 150 grain, because you say, I want to see what best is the best load for this, what shoots best out of my rifle. And I'd say that's great. But then many people will just buy whatever's the cheapest birdshot on the shelf. Same thing, like a rifle. Pattern it, shoot it. You may decide that there's 2 or 3 brands of this within the same price range, right? Within this couple of cents of each other. of made up paper currency money. And you may shoot them all and see that even though you're shooting them all through the same shotgun, same choke, that, let's say, Federal, Remington, Winchester, your shotgun, I'm just going to pick one, I'm not saying this is true, your shotgun really likes the Winchester load, even though it's a Remington shotgun. Go figure, right? It might be shooting on the box, it may say the same thing, 7.5 shot, ounce and a quarter. It might all say that on the box, same velocity, but your shotgun just patterns really, really well. What did I say? Your Remington shotgun patterns really well with the Winchester load. And that's not because it's necessarily better ammo. It's just because your shotgun likes it, just like a rifle. You might, and it's not the fault, again, of the ammo. You could go to a different shotgun, and it's completely the opposite. Maybe that shotgun likes the Federal load. You got to test this out. Don't just assume. You might find some shotguns that, they have like a giant donut-shaped pattern where there's a giant hole in the center of the pattern, which that's not good, right? You're dead on with your shotgun, but the animal just runs away or flies away because there's a big giant hole in the center of your pattern because you didn't bother to actually do any research. You just, well, I got a Winchester shotgun, so I got Winchester ammo, and it's got a squirrel on the box, and I'm hunting squirrel, so I'm good to go, right? That's a lazy cop out. Do some research if you really want to find out what your gun actually likes. You may decide, or you may find that, talking about effectiveness, I think Americans especially, maybe it's worldwide, but especially Americans, bigger is better, more is better. You may find at the ranges you're shooting, even though one load has less total pellets, that it actually puts more pellets on target. So you may find, like, let's say you have two loads. One shoots 1 ounce of shot and one shoots 1 ounce and 1/8 of shot. You might find that the load with less shot actually puts more pellets on the given target at common ranges, just because the way the pellets stack, whatever the case is. And why punish yourself with the extra recoil of the extra shot if it's not doing anything for you? It literally just exists and goes out the end of the barrel, but it doesn't go anywhere you want it to. So why punish yourself with the extra recoil, the extra weight, if it's not giving you any extra effectiveness? So yes, even in the realm of birdshot, there's a lot of fine details that you can hammer out. Talking about some myths. Here's the thing. There's so much marketing hype in the gun world, and I get it. Like, guns are cool, right? I like guns. I also don't begrudge a company for trying to make more money by selling a new product. But going back to the rifle world, and this came from a discussion with a patron whom I'm very blessed to have. But I think a lot of times people can actually believe the marketing. Like, oh, I gotta have, this is my recce AR, and this is my special purpose rifle AR, and this is my door kicking AR, and this is my vehicle convoy AR. It's got a 10-3 barrel. It's good to go for C.Q.B. And okay, here's the thing. Army has pretty much gravitated away from the M16 for a lot of things to the M4. It's pretty much become their standard, even though it was initially designed for like backup troops, second echelon, non-frontline infantry, but it's pretty much been mass adopted. The Marine Corps stick with 20-inch full-length rifle, full-length stock, full-length heavy rifle barreled rifles. Now, I served in both branches. But maybe I'm a little bit biased because I did quite a bit of urban operations in the Middle East in the Marine Corps. Couple of combat tours. I was also an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps, so call me a little bit biased on this aspect. But even most Army soldiers, I don't think they would look you square in the eye and tell you that they're better at urban warfare than the Marines. The Marines do urban warfare all day long, room clearing, with full-length 20-inch barreled rifles. They're not like, well, I can't clear that room. I need my specialty C.Q.B 10 5-inch, whatever. No, right? They're given a rifle. This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Is it the best for C.Q.B? I'm going to tell you no. But as an urban warfare instructor and somebody that's done more C.Q.B than I can honestly remember, hours and hours and hours, doing it in real life and doing it in training and teaching others how to do it. Room clearing, urban warfare, house to house, room to room, It's so much more about, it's a 4D chess game where if you lose, you can die. And it's much more about being calm, level-headed, thinking, and using geometry. Right? It's so much more important than whether you've got a 10.5 or a 16-inch or a 20-inch barrel or or a longer barrel. I'm not saying it makes no difference, but I'm saying it's exponentially. It's a little tiny, minute detail. But the gun industry would make you think like, well, you can't clear rooms with anything bigger than a 16-inch barrel. That's just silly. The M1 Garand has a 24-inch barrel. How many rooms were cleared in France? How many tight quarters were cleared in Japan? In Germany? With an M1 Garand. I'm not telling you to use an M1 Garand for C.Q.B. I'm saying perhaps that's not as important as we've been led to believe by marketing hype. If you take that into the world of the shotguns, because today's on shotguns, right? If I take a loaded double-aught buck and fire it at a living target, it's not less effective if I'm using it for urban warfare if I shot it out of a duck camouflage shotgun. The same ballistics. If I give you a full payload of that 3-inch Magnum 41 pellet number 4 buck, whatever camo pattern is on my shotgun makes no difference to the intended target. I'm not begrudging you having specialty purpose shotguns. I do. But I mostly have general purpose shotguns. Maybe I have like my Benelli M2. I've got a couple of different barrels for it. But don't fall into the trap of thinking I gotta have a heat shielded, bayonet lugged C.Q.B shotgun. And I mean, it's got to be black multicam because my carrier is black multicam, and if I don't, I'll just look silly. And if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's that looking cool is pretty much half of being good at C.Q.B. Right? So don't fall into that marketing hype. Judge what your load should be, what your shotgun should be, based on what's effective, not what marketing is. And that goes way more than shotguns, but that's just an easy example of a shotgun. If I'm just doing room clearing, would it be nice to have a 14-inch short barrel shotgun? Yeah, but I don't have any because they're a pain in the butt. And I often cross state lines, and I'd rather have a shotgun with a 18-inch barrel that I don't have to do a bunch of paperwork with the ATF every time I cross state lines. If somebody breaks into your house and you give them a full load of double-aught buck, do you think they're going to say, nope, I refuse to be incapacitated by that because you shot it out of a vent rib barrel? And everybody knows if you want to be a tactical operator, your shotgun's got to have at least ghost rings. And if you want to be Gucci, put a red dot on it. Ergo, I reject your double-aught buck. I will not accept it into my chest cavity. It's ridiculous. So it's cool that we have a lot of different options. And I'm not begrudging tactical shotguns. I like tactical shotguns. But you could go the other way too. I literally just went out quail hunting because quail season is about to be over. And my go-to, like peanut butter and chocolate hitting the fan gun, is a shotgun. So I took out my go-to shotgun, which is more or less a tactical 590 with a red dot on it. And I was shooting quail out of the air to go the other route. Those quail didn't care that it had a red dot on it and it had a Magpul stock. They weren't like, well, those pellets don't count because that's not a hunting shotgun. You can't hunt with a tactical shotgun. I took going back to my biggest bear that I've ever taken, I took with a tactical shotgun. I took it specifically out for bear hunting. Don't fall into the marketing hype of saying this shotgun can only be used for this thing. The beautiful thing about a shotgun is they're so versatile. So don't hamstring the versatility based on popular opinion. That's not based on actual fact. Anyway, that's I guess a good place to end it. There's way more we could talk about shotguns. If you like the shotgun stuff, cool. If you're like, I don't care about shotguns, I'm only into black rifles and Glock 19s, then that's fine. I'm sure there'll be a rifle episode coming out soon. Even so, I think it's important to understand, even if you have no desire to hunt and put meat on the table, use a shotgun. I think it's still good to understand things about the shotgun. I think there's a lot of myths out there. Now, let us sally forth to the tactical tip of the day. Talking about the versatility of the shotgun, one of the things you might want on your shotgun is an extra shell carrier on the side of the stock. Some people do the side of the receiver. I like the side of the stock. Some people like shells up. Some people like brass up, brass down. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, I don't care. Here's the deal. If you got a place to hold extra shells on your shotgun, or even for longer hunting expeditions where you might get to hunt different species of things, take an extra choke. It helps if it's an extended choke, so you don't need a tool. You can just screw it and unscrew it. Make sure you screw it in tight so it doesn't come loose. Also, the inverse of that, make sure you put some kind of grease or something on it. That way it doesn't get stuck in there. But anyway, take an extra choke and put it in one of those extra spots. Yeah, you'll be down one shell on your shotgun. Well, you also give a lot more versatility. I guess you could do it on your kit if you wanted to put an extra choke in your kit. Well, you didn't eat up the extra capacity on there. But you could take it in there. If you think it might fall out because it doesn't have real good positive retention, just put a zip tie through it and zip tie it into the extra shell carrier. And then if you need it, you just break the zip tie. Cut the zip tie. If you got a shotgun, I assume you have a knife. And you get a lot more versatility. If you decide, you know what, like a lot of times when I go out, there's several different game birds if I'm going out to hunt game birds. It might be pheasants. There might be quail in. My general go-to for most things is improved cylinder. But let's say that I'm getting some long shots. I want to switch, and I can switch in the field. That's one of the great things about the versatility of the modern shotgun. So that's your tactical tip of the day. Throw an extra choke in that shell carrier if you want to. Your tactical verse of the day. Then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations. That reminds me of several other verses, all beautiful. For no temptation has overtaken you except that which is common to man. And also, he has been tempted in all ways as we are, yet without sin. Don't forget, Jesus became a man. He was drawn into the desert by the Spirit, which is a mind-blowing thing to study, to be tempted by the devil. He was tempted by the devil, and he did not sin. He knows what it's like to be tempted. So when you're tempted, go to the one who knows and who defeated it. Go to Jesus, our Savior. You win 100 gunfights and you go to hell, you game over, man. You lost. You missed the point. You lost the war. Don't win the battles and lose the war. Your victory is in Christ. You need help with temptation? Go to Christ. You need salvation? Go to Christ. You need strength? Go to Christ. You need anything? You go to God, the one who made everything. With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.